I'm here to talk about my personal experience and to drive home the importance of having a plan and dealing with the expense of home care, which is far above what anybody thinks it's going to be until they encounter the problem firsthand. And I think it can be an incredibly sticky aspect of the relationship that all of you can have with your clients, because it's something people don't really think about and they don't know a lot about it. And in the land of the blind, the one-eyed is king. It could be you. During a beautiful fall bicycle ride 7 years ago, it took just an instant for me to be thrown literally in a dozen worlds I knew nothing about. Everything from hospitals to Hoyer lifts, from handicap parking to home care. Still, it's amazing to me how a person's path in life can be altered in just a split second. You see me here today in a wheelchair, but it wasn't always that way. So just give me a few. When I was in college, and I started thinking about what I was going to do when I graduated, all I wanted to do was work on Wall Street. The excitement, the adrenaline, the buzz, and of course the money. So when I graduated from Wharton, I quickly headed to the street. The business was good, and it was satisfying, and it was really the very symbol of excess greed and Gordon Gekko. I was there for the glory and the gloom of the last 30 years. I worked at E.F. Hutton during the 1987 market crash. A month later, E.F. Hutton had crashed. In 1993, I was literally walking by the World Trade Center for a client lunch when the first bomb occurred. At 9/11, I was sitting at my desk at Lehman Brothers, which is in the World Financial Center, right across from the Trade Center, right across West Street, and I heard and I saw the planes hit the towers. I was quickly evacuated, and then I looked up and I saw numerous people jumping from the North Tower. And then I saw both the towers fall in front of me. 7 years later, I was still at Lehman, and I seemingly lost everything when we were the only bank who was not designated too big to fail. Thankfully, Barclays bought a bunch of Lehman out of bankruptcy, and I moved over there and built their Asian equity desk. But my career as a managing director on Wall Street ended unexpectedly November 26, 2011, and it had nothing to do with the markets. Until that time, my life had been going pretty much as I had planned when I graduated from Penn. 3 healthy and well-adjusted daughters, an amazing wife, a stimulating and successful career, an active life, a fun life. And sports were always an important part of my life. I was an excellent skier. I was a strong cyclist. I was a good runner. And I was a lousy golfer. And that's why, on that unseasonably warm Thanksgiving weekend, I went out for a bicycle ride with a group of friends. I went for a 50-mile ride from my house up to Harriman State Park in New York. We were almost done, just a few miles to go, when all of a sudden, an out-of-control SUV comes barreling at us. The SUV hit my buddy Zach first, then me, head-on, without braking. It was 1:06 p.m. on a bright and sunny day, and somehow, the driver fell fast asleep. I was quickly medevac to Hackensack, but I wasn't expected to survive. I had massive internal and orthopedic injuries. My femur was sticking out of my thigh, and I was in grave danger of bleeding out. Against all odds, the trauma surgeon saved my life several times that day and over the ensuing 51 days in ICU. Still, my spine is crushed, I'm a paraplegic, and I'll never walk again. After Hackensack, I was transferred to Kessler Rehab. Kessler is one of the top rehab hospitals in the country for spinal cord injuries. It's also ironically located in my hometown of West Orange, New Jersey. And despite what Thomas Wolfe might say, this was not the way I wanted to go home again. The interesting thing is when you're in rehab, the goal is no longer to heal you. The goal here is to teach you how to live your life as a paraplegic. I have to tell you, I had a lot of goals in life. This was not on my bucket list. Every night, I'd cry myself to sleep at Kessler, hoping, praying that I'd wake up in the morning and everything would have been a bad dream. It was bad, all right, but it wasn't a dream. When I got home, after 5 months in hospitals, the complete loss of my independence was starkly apparent. I had nurses and caregivers and therapists and antibiotic infusions, and I could barely move on my own. I had a lot of why me's. Why me? Why me? I was riding carefully. I didn't do anything wrong. Can't we just go back again? Aren't there backsies? What are the odds at that very moment she would lose control? At home, my family had been incredibly supportive. But time marches on and their lives were moving on. They no longer needed me to help them kick a soccer ball or help them with algebra. But what they did need was for me to teach them something far more important, and that's how to handle whatever life throws at you. I had always expected to go back to Barclays. They had left the door open for me, and each time I was close to going back, I had another medical setback. And I realized as time went on, I didn't want another corporate job, much less one on Wall Street. At about this time, one of my dearest and closest friends, Anne, died in an equestrian accident. It hit me really hard. I kept thinking about her family at the funeral and afterwards, and what they would give to have her back with them again. That was somewhat of a turning point for me. Until then, I had always thought of myself as a victim. But now, I realized I was a survivor. I thought about Anne a lot. Anne and I had grown up with similar ideals that we would go out there and make a difference in the world. And then she had done it. A native South African, she had single-handedly marshaled the forces to build a residential village in Rwanda for the victims of that genocide. And that village lives on and has graduated thousands of orphans. So now that I was reassessing my life and I was thinking what I wanted to do, I was wondering, what could I do to change the status quo, to have an impact, to help people? Well, it turns out, as a result of my accident, I am uniquely qualified to deal with an enormous social problem. And that is, our home care system is broken, and I'm in a good position to address it. When I first came home from my hospital stays, I discovered something that you probably don't know, because I didn't know it either. And that is, your health insurance does not cover home care. Let me say that again. Your health insurance does not cover home care. It doesn't matter if you've contributed into it your entire career like I did, with Lehman and Barclays and others, or you're on Medicare. All you're going to get is a few hours a day, a few hours a week, for a few weeks, and then you're done. You're left to figure it out on your own and to pay for it on your own. So 2/3 of Americans believe that the government is going to step in and take care of home care. That's an important stat when you're thinking about your clients. In fact, I have quite a few interesting stats as I go on, just to drive home the enormous numbers that we're talking about here. There are 10,000, maybe you've heard this before, 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day, and that's going to continue for the next 12 years. almost 70% of these people, 65 and older, will need long-term care services and support. 10% of those 65 and over will develop Alzheimer's. 33% of those 85 and over will develop Alzheimer's. The next chart is this pie graph that an organization called the SCAN Foundation put together, and it's something that Genworth likes to use. And they call it their sort of $725 billion spent on care in the US. This is a few years old, so the numbers are actually even higher. But a couple of things that I think are really interesting that jump out at you. If you look at the top sliver, that's $7 billion spent on long-term care insurance. I think the number is more like $9.5 billion now. But if you look at the total pie, that's 1% of the entire pyramid that we're talking about. Clearly, where we stand now, that's not going to be the answer. But it's clearly an important piece. The other thing that I find really interesting are these two horizontal lines that are going through. One is the $63 billion that people spend on out-of-pocket expenses. And the other is the $450 billion of the informal family caregivers and putting a market value on what they spend in helping their family members. And that's $450 billion. You put it together, it's over $500 billion. There are approximately 45 million informal family caregivers in the United States, and another there are 45 million, I didn't say billion, did I?
Million.
45 million.
Yeah.
And there are 5 million paid caregivers. We can go to the next chart. So if you do the sort of basic math on that 513 and you divide it by the 45 million, we're talking about over $10,000 a family. Obviously, this is just an average. The range is all over the place. Another thing is you think about that $10,000 each family is spending. That's gone up 46% since 2002. An important thing to understand, and I was thinking about this when I listened to, excuse me if I get the names wrong, Darren and Diane, in their, and listening to your clients. So 9 out of 10 people want to age at home. This is their wish, and we need to try to address this. Because I remember when I was a kid, many moons ago, my grandmother, she went to a nursing home, and that's what people did. And now it's much healthier to stay at home, it's a much better atmosphere, socialization, it's even healthier. But that's just what was done. And the adult children want to listen to them and they want to help them. But they're not really sure how to do it and they don't like their options. And if you look at the approximately $75 billion that's spent on those paid caregivers that I mentioned before, 60% is spent on these hire on your own caregivers. The next chart I look at from 2010 to 2015, the percentage of people who use their own savings for care has gone up by 50%. So one of the things that you need to think about when you want to qualify for long-term care insurance is your inability to do activities of daily living. There are 7 activities: dressing, bathing, eating, toileting, continence, transferring, and walking. And these are some of the determinants on whether you can qualify. I'm going to talk a little bit about long-term care insurance here. And I know others have spoken about it, and I'm not going to get into as much of the detail as, I guess it was Doug who was talking about it, and there may have been others. But you know, the positives are the peace of mind that you have that you're going to be protected. You need to consider your family history, because ironically, if you're healthy and you have healthy genes, your actual expense may be higher rather than lower, because you're going to live longer, and some of these chronic conditions that you need to consider are only going to be with you longer, and they're going to be more expensive. Back. And then you have to think about So, of course, your family history and the expense of care. Now, I'm sure you all know some of the negatives that are out there about long-term care insurance. The pricing was anything but static, and it's anything but cheap. And you may have a finite term of benefits, because when long-term care insurance first started in the 70s and the 80s, when there was so much interest, the benefits were open-ended. And we're finding at Lean on We that we have people who come to us, and they have these incredible long-term care policies that can cover everything. And unfortunately, they were way underpriced, and you can't get that anymore. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So what happened? What did the actuaries get wrong? They got a bunch of things wrong. People lived longer than they expected, which is great when you're trying to price life insurance, but it's not when you're pricing long-term care insurance. And people ended up needing more care, partially because they lived longer than they thought. And here's actually the next two factors are the biggest factors. People didn't lapse their policies. So think about it. Even though the prices went up, people didn't lapse those policies because they knew it was important that they hold on to it. And the biggest factor is interest rates stayed lower much longer than they expected, and they couldn't get a decent return on long-term care. Go to the next slide. So an interesting thing is, long-term care insurance has really taken it on the ringer, right? I mean, the press is horrible. They're writing all kinds of things about what a horrible product is, how you have no confidence in the price being static, and prices have gone up dramatically. But, so I go back to my earlier point, they hiked the prices, but people didn't lapse. They didn't lapse because it was a good deal. Even though the prices went up, it was a good deal. So if you went out and, I don't know, you bought some app that charged you $4.99 a month, let's say, and then the price doubled to $9.99, and you kept it, well, that means the $4.99 was just an underpriced product. And that's exactly what we're dealing here with long-term care insurance. The underlying cost is astronomical, and that's why you need it. So really the thing to think about is all those people who got those policies just got this incredible bargain. And it doesn't necessarily mean that what you pay for now is overpriced. This is, I know, the non-consensus view, but it's food for thought when you think about it. Now look, I know that you can only sell what people are going to buy, and the actuaries clearly heard that, which is why they came out with a lot of varieties of hybrid life, and other people have talked about that. And that's well and good. I mean, hybrid life offers the biggest thing that you don't get with long-term care insurance, and that is it's not going to go unused. And I know that Doug just spoke about that previously, which is great. I mean, you're going to die, or you're going to use it for long-term care, or if you change your mind, you can get the cash value back. The problem is something that can serve 3 or 4 different ends doesn't do any of them particularly well, and that's just the way it is. Now, you're probably selling in the United States 5 hybrid life policies for every 1 new long-term care policy, and that primarily is this idea that I don't want to buy something that I'm never going to use, which is a strange thing. I'm an actuary's son, so I grew up with thinking about things this way. And nobody gets upset when they don't use their auto insurance, do they? Nobody gets upset when they don't use their homeowner's insurance because that flood didn't come into their home. And yet there's this visceral feeling around long-term care insurance, which I get, but not totally, I guess. Anyway, the reasons hybrid life, it's not only this live, die, or change your mind, it's going to be used one way or the other. The price is going to be generally static, and you're going to get this death benefit. Now, it's expensive. And like I said before, there's a lot of good fits, but no great fits. And maybe more insurance, life insurance, is not what people need. That's all for you to figure out, of course. I'm just the guy up here throwing out different ideas. Next one. And it's fun, because I'm not the guy who's got to go and talk to the clients about it. The demographics of long-term care insurance and hybrid life are similar. the wealthy are generally going to, and you can define wealthy as you see fit, are generally going to self-insure. And the low-income people are going to look to Medicaid. So it's somewhere in the middle. It seems like hybrid life is really more in the middle to upper middle, because it's where it's really been attractive is as asset protection. And it's the insured not wanting to lose the ability to pass something on to their children. Keep going. Okay, here I'm going to talk a little bit about individual disability insurance. And there's these high wire workers, because those are the guys who need the individual disability insurance, right? But interesting, so you're going to get some group health, but is that good enough? And that's the question. Many people think, well, I don't have that kind of job. I'm not really at that much at risk. Well, it's true, because the number one need for drawing down an individual disability policy is a musculoskeletal injury. But number two is cancer. And that really doesn't discriminate, does it? Let's go to the next slide. Keep moving along. So, individual disability is expensive, and that's why it can be a hard sell. But the need is clearly there. 70% of workers in their 20s will have to take a leave of 6 months or more by the time they retire. That's a pretty important way to look at it. So I'm going to give you my personal, I like to give personal anecdotes, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. I bought some individual disability insurance in my 20s, one of my first jobs. A guy came around to my office and he said, you know, I'm here to sell individual disability insurance. I didn't know one thing or the other. One of my coworkers said, you know, this thing's really important. It's actuarially something that has a much higher likelihood of being needed than you think. And I said, okay, I'll buy it. And I never gave it another thought. I paid it. I had a cost of living rider for the next 25 years. And this is my picture of Barclays because I was at Barclays and I got one of those emails that went around at the firm. You know, we have, if anybody interested in individual with disability, we have a group rate that you're eligible to take advantage of. And for some reason, that caught my eye, and I was thinking, well, you know, I got it 25 years ago, but my life has changed quite a bit during that time. I didn't have kids. I didn't have as big a home. My needs were just completely different. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take a look at this. And I bought more individual disability insurance. And I bought that, I think it closed exactly 1 month before my accident.
Oh, wow.
So I wouldn't be here, still comfortable, still in a position to go and start a business on my own without that. I mean, I am the poster boy for buying individual disability insurance. So if you can't sell it by using me as an example, you're in the wrong line of business. Okay, let's go to the next one. I'm going to talk a little bit about annuities. And I know others have talked about that as well. You have a fixed or you have a variable component on whether you invest in the market or a fixed return, and you can take a deferred or immediate. I generally, I don't hear a lot of people I know talking about annuities. And I think it's actually a great vehicle to have amongst your other arrows in your quiver. The benefits are you can get the same tax benefit of a 401k or an IRA, and you don't have a cap on the amount you can contribute, which is a really strong benefit. One of the big negatives is it's got a very high commission. So I am going to go to the next one, and this is a picture of my dad, the actuary that I mentioned. My dad was a life insurance consulting actuary. He was quite successful and quite well known, and the Best Review rag, which I believe is still around, he was featured frequently. He did a lot of writing. And he thought this would be really funny if he got a picture of him jogging in front of the pyramids and put that on the cover of the magazine. So interesting, my father, the iconoclast, I have to give him a plug, and He was a life insurance actuary, helped a number of smaller insurance companies get started, but he didn't believe in life insurance for himself. He didn't have life insurance, and my mom didn't have life insurance. But what he did believe in is self-insuring through single premium deferred annuities. And it had the benefits that I spoke about previously, and I think because, and I don't really know this for sure, but he was his own consulting actuary at a small practice, he probably didn't have the benefits of things like 401ks and IRAs. I don't even know the timing on when they came to be a force. But he did have the advantage of annuities. And, but what he also did is you can lower the commission on an annuity if instead of having a broker sell it to you, you buy it directly from the underwriter. And because he went to an underwriter that he had helped found and was actually on the board, I think he was even lower than that. It may have been no commission at all. So the one big detriment that you have with annuities, he had taken off the table. And the other thing he did is this insurance company, which was based in Nyack, New York, Presidential Life, which is no longer, which has been since bought by another company, had invested in a lot of high-yield bonds. So their rating was not great. And they had to offer high commissions or high returns on their annuities in order to attract customers. So there he is. My father is breaking every rule that I had learned in school and from here. He's not going to buy life insurance. He's not going to diversify his annuities. He's going to put them all in annuities, or much of them, not all. He's not going to diversify. He's going to put them all in one insurance carrier. And he's going to go to an insurance carrier that has a lousy rating to get a better return. But it worked out for him. So he had these single premium deferred annuities in his name and my mom's name. And I don't know the particulars, but my dad had a bunch of health issues. My mom did. You know, he had prostate cancer, he had some cardiac issues, and some other issues. And so when he decided to annuitize his annuity, he got a really nice return, because his life expectancy was, I don't know, 5 years or something at the time. And my mom, he gave her the choice in what she wanted to do, and she chose not to, which was probably a mistake. Because she's, well, and I'll get back to that. So my father, ever the actuary, is like, they're giving me 5 years for my payback. I'm going to beat them. And 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, I don't know. I think he lived another 15 years. And he was so excited because he beat the system. And, you know, he was quantitative. And that's the way he thought. And he just, and he had a really good return. And I say it, going back to my idea about healthcare, he had enormous home care costs. By the end of his life, he also had Parkinson's, and he had a 24-hour limit. But he was covered. He was paid for. It was not a drain on me or my siblings. Now my mom, who lived longer and still alive, had fewer health problems, but so she wouldn't have gotten the same return. I don't think that's the right term to use, but it would have been useful, because now she also needs 24-hour care, and the peace of mind that we would have had as the children of having that there would be an enormous help. And so I'm giving you some of my personal experiences on individual disability and annuity, and why I'm biased, and I think that they're good products and worthwhile to sell. I'm going to continue because I'm probably running on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. So I sort of gave the intro on my story, how I ended up in this world, and a sort of epiphany on home care. And then I went through a lot of the stats which I'm sure some of them you've heard before on the absolute cost and the trends, the demographic trends that are going on in the United States. Now I'm going to go back to my own wrestling with home care. And I was trying to, when I was in that situation, I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Well, I had two options. One is I could continue with the home care agency that provided those few hours of care. But they were charging $25 an hour. That would be out of pocket. And they had a 4-hour minimum. So I only needed 2 hours of care. So I'm looking at least $100 a day indefinitely. So I did what most people did. I'm going to look to find somebody on my own. Hire a caregiver privately. But I was shocked to find that that was also fraught with problems. There's really no way to know anything about the caregiver. No way to know anything about their experience, their references, or even if they have a criminal record. And how would I find these caregivers? Well, that, as I quickly discovered, is a whole underground market. Craigslist, classified ads, your neighbor's uncle's cousin knew someone some months ago. It's total luck of the draw. Really. So I tend to think of it, if it's total luck of the draw, the way to view it is that famous philosopher, Forrest Gump, and his box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. And that's not really a very good way to find home care. Dealing with home care isn't something people think about until it becomes a crisis. Right? Your mother falls, your father develops Parkinson's, your aunt leaves the stove on and starts a fire again. And that is the essence of why I'm here today. The problem of finding good home care is a silver tsunami. We know the demographics. I've gone through them here. Americans are getting older, they need more care, and they overwhelmingly want to age at home. So the problem's boiled down to 3 key issues. One is the high cost of home care. Using an agency is fine when the insurance company is the payer, or you have a short period of time. But if you have long-term care needs, it's really not viable for most people. It's just too expensive. And I feel the home care industry is going to have to change, much like the car transport companies have, the hospitality companies have. Americans have spoken, and they don't want to pay a high cost for a middleman. And the underground market, the fact that people use it, just confirms that. The second issue is the low pay for caregivers. So even though you may be paying that $25 an hour that I'm talking about, the caregiver is only making $10, $11, $12 an hour. That's less than most of you are going to pay for a teenage babysitter. And it's not easy work. And we know the demand for caregivers is high. So how are we going to incentivize people to go into this line of work if they can't earn a living wage? And that's why there's a shortage of caregivers out there. My third issue is there's no choice of control. We're a consumer-driven society. We expect to have choice when we go out and buy something. But, so we expect to know something about the experience and references of a caregiver that we hire. But not only that, we want to know something about their skill set, about their personality, on whether they're a good fit. And right now, you can't do that. You can find more information on going out and buying a new flat screen TV than you can on hiring a caregiver. So none of this is easily done on your own, which is why at Lena we seriously screen our caregivers. We vet them, we reference them, we take a fingerprint, we shoot a video, we make sure they're experienced. So now, if you come to our network to find a caregiver on your own, you know that you have the peace of mind that these people have been seriously vetted, and it's not just that person you find blindly on your own. And we reduce the family expense by not only finding someone who's a good fit, but by having a system that is efficient and cost efficient. It doesn't give you what you don't need, but gives you what you do need, and makes it less expensive to you. We provide caregivers and, more importantly, families with information. So you can hire somebody with the knowledge of what a market rate is and how much you should pay them for the level of care that's needed. And most importantly, we help families find someone who is the right fit for them. Because it's not really just about having someone who has experience dealing with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. It's someone who's going to be a good social fit for your family member. We like to call it the eHarmony of home care. So what have we learned at Lean On We? We've learned that parents are really concerned about outliving their assets. And they're really concerned on being a financial or otherwise burden on their kids. And likewise, on the flip side, the kids who we speak to, I call them kids, but adult children, are really concerned that the parents don't have the means to take care of themselves. Some of them are thinking about the inheritance that's dwindling. I'm sure you see that too. And others are thinking about, am I going to need to step up and fill that gap? And that's a horrible feeling for either side to deal with. At the same time, children are trying to honor parents' wishes. Because parents want to age at home, and they want to figure out how they're going to be able to do that. And that's a really big factor. Go to the next slide. So some of the things that we hear from people when they come to us is Medicare. What do you mean Medicare doesn't cover home care? I already talked about that. You probably heard that from others. But that is a huge misconception that people think about. And the next one is, can't I just pay that caregiver $12 an hour, $11 an hour, $10 an hour? If they're living, can't I just pay them $100 a day because look, I'm offering room and board? It doesn't work that way. These people have their own homes. They're not looking for room and board. You need to pay a caregiver a living wage. You need to think about these are important people fulfilling an important function, and a crucial function, really. And one of the beauties of what we do is that $10, $11, or $12 an hour that I talked about caregivers make through an agency, if you have the two minds meet without an agency, and you pay them $17 an hour, $18 an hour, not only are you paying less, they're earning 50% more. They're much more invested in that relationship and ensuring that it goes well. So one of the things, a couple of our some specific observations. One is that why not have a long-term care insurance product that only covers home care as opposed to home care and care in a facility? Makes a lot of sense. I've already said that 90% of people want to age at home. So why are you insuring for the 10% when you can pay much less by insuring for the 90%? And in fact, Bankers Life had that policy, and that's what I was thinking about. And I called a guy, an agent from Bankers Life I had met a couple days ago, and he told me that they just discontinued the policy. And I was like, what? That's a great product. It's so suitable for the world we live in, by giving people what they want and not what they don't want, and paying for what you need. And he said they got a lot of backlash because when it came time to annuitize, exercise the policy, the family didn't realize that it was only good at home. In some of the cases, people went to a facility, and it was like it was bad PR, or bad social media, or bad something, and they couldn't take the risk of selling it anymore, which I think is such a shame because here you have someone who's been creative and coming up with a good product. But again, just me giving my 2 cents. The next thing I wanted to talk about, is Lean On We customers. So an observation we've had is we have a lot of people who come to Lean On We and they have their long-term care insurance policy and they use it. And then many others, most don't have a long-term care insurance policy. But the fact of the matter is, in either case, well, we have a really interesting targeted market for people to buy long-term care insurance. Because either they've seen what a lifesaver and that would include, by the way, hybrid life. I mean, anything that's providing that long-term care solution. Either they've seen what a lifesaver it has been for their parents and therefore them, or maybe they haven't seen it and they know what financial stress they're going on. So these are the people who really get it about getting some long-term care solution, and we're exploring some ways to target that population. In conclusion, care is expensive, and it's getting more so by the day. And these insurance products that I've spoken about and others have spoken about are really needed. And once care is needed, we can be really a good resource. Just a quick note on Lean on We. So our network is now, over the last several years, has over 1,100 caregivers in the entire metro New York area, and we've served about 850 families. And I have to say, industry professionals have been enthralled with what we're doing, and I couldn't be happier about that. You know, for me personally, it's been quite a journey from the Wild West of Wall Street to the Wild West of home care. But I have to say, helping people has given me a renewed purpose. And sometimes those things are lost amid the greed and glory. Thank you. Yeah, questions?
On a lot of the long-term care policies, you have to have licensed, qualified providers. You can't just get somebody that you think will serve well. So how does
Sure. So
fit in with that?
it's true, absolutely. Well, but most of the caregivers on our network are licensed caregivers, and therefore, if somebody has a long-term care insurance policy, we ensure that we get somebody who qualifies for that.
Because I'll hear a lot from people, well, you know, maybe I don't want this long-term care policy because I'm going to do the underground way because it's too expensive the other way, which is what a lot of people are doing, and so they don't want to do the long-term care insurance because of that.
In the vast majority of the cases, we can help them hire someone privately with a policy. There are certain cases where a carrier insists on you going through an agency, absolutely. One of the things we're now working on is we're working within the long-term care industry, and we're establishing those relationships to get a bit of a feeder, so they know, because the carriers are getting requests from their policyholders to do that, the underground, and they haven't had a means to support that, and they're hearing it louder and clearer now. Any other questions? Thanks.
Okay, you should have one tag, CE tag, in your name badge to drop off. I want to thank everyone. Hopefully everyone can participate in the wind down. If you have any comments or suggestions, please put them on the bulletin board. And if you haven't turned in one of those call to actions, and if you're still interested, please take some time to do that and turn that in. Thank you very much.
There it is.
Are you